Tennis Grand Slams are well known, with championships on clay, grass and hard courts. It's a successful formula, which the Star Sailors League is adapting for sailing. After 2 sea Grand Slams in the Bahamas, now we're in Switzerland for the first ever Lake Grand Slam.
As you can see, it's the best period of the year to sail in Untitled Lake. La Bise is the famous winds from the north. It's quite cold, but it's very steady, very good, so it will be a very fair race. If the wind is coming from France, from the Jura, it's called the Joran, and then it's going to be more tricky. The last wind is more from the east, so it's more warm. It's more half and half. You have to choose your side. Go on one side, on the other side. You can't play the middle. So no security, only high-level emotions.
Tricky conditions then for the 150 sailors. Former world champ and Olympic bronze medalist Xavier Rohart is one of the top contenders. As is Torben Grael, a most accomplished sailor with 5 Olympic medals, plus a round-the-world victory in the harsh 9-month Volvo Ocean race under his belt. The reigning star world champions Robert Staniek and Fritjof Kleen are here from Germany. And the American Olympic gold medalist star sailors Mark Reynolds and Hal Heinel are also here. Reynolds' 2 Olympic golds recognised with a wax statue in the Olympic Museum in Lausanne during this event. But this Grand Slam also attracts youngsters from other classes, like Olympic laser silver medalist Pavlos Kontides from Cyprus, crewed by the mighty American Mark Strube.
Yeah, it's a really nice boat and real fun. Of course, it's much different than a laser. It's a keel boat, and when the boat stops, it needs much more time to get going, especially later on in the day when the wind got much lighter. But it was great fun and really nice to sail in the Star.
An interesting mix then of big hitters and lake specialists from Europe. All 80 or so teams race each other over days 1, 2 and 3 of the regatta. Then on day 4, the top 10 move to the quarterfinals, with the top 7 going through to the semis. Then the top 4 from that battling for the major slice of the $100,000 prize fund. It's a knockout series, and unlike most sailing formats, the final result is all about who crosses the finish line first, second and third in that crucial big money final race. All that to come, but let's get out onto the water for the first race of this Grand Slam on beautiful Lake Neuchâtel in Switzerland with our race reporter, Digby Fox.
Well, here we are for the first race of day 1 of the first ever Grand Slam on the lake. La Bise is kicking in from the north, much to the enjoyment of everybody, with nearly 80 boats on the start line. You can see between the orange flags, boom, off they go. Had a couple of full starts already. Now, black flag, they're all clear, and away they go. Mendelblatt and Fatih, Reynolds and Heinel, the Americans, bunching up to the left-hand side of the track, going upwind, and a big spread across this course, over a kilometre from top to bottom. There is Grandson Castle, Chateau, plenty of battles and medieval history from that beautiful castle. And these sailors really enjoying the conditions on Lake Neuchâtel. And Virtual Eye giving us a big spread and favoured on the left-hand side of the track. Right of picture, the Brazilians, Torben Grael with Guillaume Diomeda beginning to lead the charge. Guillaume talking the old master back into the game for Nassau last year. They were a little rusty, but they've hit the deck running for the Grand Slam on the lake here in Switzerland. Mark Mendelblatt, Brian Fatih, who won that Grand Slam on the sea, they're in contention. The numbers 1 and 2 is their Star Sailors League ranking, their highest ever positions. Grael and Diomeda 8th and 11th, best result there, but they are cleaning up on the final with the reigning world champion Staniek and Kleen following hot on their heels. Well, blue skies, sunshine, lake conditions for the 80 or so boats, 150 or so competitors. Diomeda there on the mast with Torben Grael working his boat downwind, all the crews pumping and ooching, working hard. over 10 knots. These guys can maximum pump, and Grail winding that huge mainsail in for the final little dogleg to the finish line. Kuznedovic and Jitski, the Poles, ahead of Mendelblatt and Fati. Staniak and Klein in fourth. So first bullet to the brilliant Brazilians.
We did a good start, and we got the side we wanted, and got well in the mark. So that was a good start for the championship.
Race number 2, furthest from our camera, the Brazilian boat, bow 8. Grail and De Almeida over the line early, so they will not count this result. Oh, and look at this. Pavlos Kontides, the laser silver medalist, sailing with Mark Struby. First time ever for the Cypriot in a starboat. Going pretty well on Lake Neuchâtel.
Yeah, I was leading, and on the downwind I decided to jibe a bit earlier, which was a mistake, because if you are leading you just want to follow the others, but I jibed, and then I lost much more places.
Bow 2, Rohart and Lillier. Xavier Rohart, former world champ, bronze medalist, hoping to do well on Lake Neuchâtel, rounding the top mark first, ahead of Finn sailor Ivan Gaspic. And Labise, the Kiss, in full flow from the north, as the sailors are allowed to use kinetic energy and pump the sail, adding a huge athletic dimension to this game of the Star class, with that massive mainsail and no spinnaker. Big lineup at the front. Mendelblatt and Fati taking the lead over Rohart and Lilia. Grand Saint Chateau, the castle in the background, beautiful backdrop. The Swiss flag flying proudly. And we jump to the final gate rounding for the short dogleg to the finish. 2 French crews, Bernaz Pascal, Rohart and Lillier battling away for second and third, but it's the German reigning world champ Staniak and Klein taking the gun for race number 2. Now over to Jenny Tulloch for races 3 and 4.
Race 3 was no longer a battle for the left, with the breeze dying in the middle of the lake. Croatians Missouri and Barrick read it perfectly to round at the front, just ahead of Diaz and Baltans. It was a light air game now, and the Americans came to the fore, with Augie Diaz and Arnie Baltans legging out just ahead of George SZABO, with local crew sailor DUCOMMUN. The Croatians finished third.
We had an extremely good day, very, very fortunate. We were fast too, which always helps, but we had 4 good starts and got clear of the line, which that separation always helps you, stay in the top, 10 or so, and that's what happened to us today.
The race committee pushed for a 4th race today while the breeze held, and the Swiss boats crowded the boat end of the line. Donisbo led, with Grail on the hunt, chasing them down in the final downwind for their 2nd bullet of the day. SZABO rounded out the podium again, just in front of Diaz and Baltans. Final standings for the day have Augie Diaz and Arnie Baltans just 1 point ahead of SZABO and DUCOMMUN, then 1 point to Staniak and Klein, and 1 more to 4th place Grail and De Almeida.
To celebrate the Stars Olympic story from 1932 to 2012, the International Olympic Museum in Lausanne opened a special exhibit about the class and the sailors. Boats and memorabilia were donated by the athletes, and the 2 Madame Tussauds quality waxworks went down a storm.
Because my life really has revolved around Olympics since, like I described, since the 60s when my father was trying out for the Olympics. So it's something that I've been involved with my whole life, and to come to the Olympic Museum and have a sailing exhibit here, and actually to be part of the exhibit is it's an incredible experience.
It is you who are the real story of star sailing, and it is you who will inspire the visitors with your stories you have to tell. So thank you for donating this equipment to the Olympic Museum, but thank you even more for sharing.
Star Sailors League has had these great Grand Slams in Nassau, and I think this event now is really is bringing it to the people, bringing it to the fleets here on a lake instead of on the open sea in Nassau. And what a opportunity to just, you know, explode to the public and take off into the future.
Day 2 of the Star Sailors League Lake Grand Slam had a light wind forecast, but La Bise filled beautifully, almost 15 knots to start the day's first race. The Polish nailed the start at the boat to lead in the middle, but eventually it was a downwind duel with Mendelblatt Fati teaching the master class, Polish taking second, and Croatian Gaspic with Revkin in third. Here's Fati on their strategy.
Well, we're getting pretty good starts, and it's pretty shifty, so if we fall back a little bit, we can work some shifts and get back into it.
A black flag and 4 boats over to start the second race, where the right side of the shore came into play for the first time this week. Leaders came from far left with Rohart and far right for Berger, who was able to hold off the hard-charging Mendelblatt, taking the first Swiss win of this regatta.
After yesterday, probably everyone figured out more or less how it works out there, so it was more about getting a clean start and just, you know, play the first shifts, which we managed quite nice.
Final race saw much lighter breeze, a shift in techniques as crews went inboard and transitions became all important. Grail and De Almeida were back on form to take their 3rd bullet of the 7 races. With the final 2 qualifying races coming up, the focus is now on making the quarterfinals. George Zarif is currently sitting in that special 11th spot.
We have to qualify, and if we are 2nd or 11th, there's no difference. So the important thing is to do 2 consistent races, try to be top 10 and qualify.
After 2 dramatic days of competition, on day 3 Lake Neuchâtel in Switzerland laid on perfect conditions for rowing, but not so good for sailboat racing. Flat calm, mill pond water, time for coffees and chatting ashore. Which means the results are in after 7 races deciding who goes through to the final day. Mendelblatt and Fati gain a pass to the semis, with the next 10 all in the quarterfinals. Spare a thought for Merkelbach and Bartel tied on points in 12th, but Zarif and Prada going through with that better 4th place on the leaderboard. So these top 11 teams will be scrapping out for the bulk of the $100,000 prize money, plus the kudos of being the first ever Lake Grand Slam champions. Now it's crunch time for the Star Sailors League Grand Slam on the lake in Switzerland. 10 teams have qualified for the quarterfinals, and the key here is that unlike most sailboat racing, no points are being carried forward, which means the quarters, semis and finals all start with a blank sheet. From the quarters here, 6 teams go through to the semis, and then only 4 will be on to the start line for the final. Back to the race action with our reporter Digby Fox.
A cracking start to the quarterfinals. Staniek and Klein, the German reigning world champions. Bow number 6 off the committee boat end, but left a picture not great for SZABO and DUCOMMUN. The local Swiss sailor, bow number 9, all Brazilians, Grail and De Almeida next to them. Lighter breeze today. Fritjof Klein in the red cap, pointing up the track with tactical information. Grail and De Almeida pushing to the right-hand side, as are Staniek and Klein with Gaspic, the Croatian, and American Josh Revkin. A big spread across the track. And boom, Staniek and Klein crossing with rights for the top mark shakedown. Gaspic and Revkin tack behind in second. Bernaz and Pascal from France are third. These guys in the safe zone for the semis at the moment. Diaz and Boltins tucked away in fourth. Grail and Diomeda made up for that shocker of a start, now in fifth, but here's the danger zone. Sixth, Rohart and Lilia. Seventh, SZABO and DUCOMMUN. Eighth, Zarif and Prada. Remember, only the top six go through to the semis. On the second lap now, Gaspic and Revkin miles ahead around the top mark. Grail and Diomeda up into second, followed by Diaz and Boltins. How tight is this pack going into the final leg? Then the Polish duo of Kuzniewicz and Zitsky, Bernard and Rambo in fifth, SZABO and DUCOMMUN sixth, Staniek and Klein now in trouble in seventh. There's the lineup from second to ninth. A final run downwind in this super close quarter-final. Rohart and Lilia and Zarif Prada at the back. They need to pull something out of the bag here. Now, can the world champs Staniek and Klein from Germany claw back a place from SZABO and Leduc in sixth for that all-important cut-off? Well, there's the race. Two of these crews will go through. They're eyeball to eyeball, and Staniek and Klein making a move on SZABO and DUCOMMUN. The Germans jibe over. Zarif Prada coming back into the mix now. Bow 3, the Polish crew, Kuzniewicz and Zitsky, they're getting horribly squeezed out from the inside pack. It's all about speed. Fritjof Klein, cool as a cucumber, just stepping over his the whisker pole there. Very elegant and light for such a big guy. The French and German duos seem to have pace here. Well, the dice are about finished tumbling in this quarter-final. Gaspic and Revkin miles ahead, out for a weekend cruise, finishing first. Great result for these guys. And the chasing pack rounding the bottom gate. This will be the finishing order. Grail and Diomeda second, Diaz and Boltins third, Staniek and Klein jumping up into fourth, ahead of Frenchmen Bernard and Rambo. SZABO and DUCOMMUN claiming that sixth spot. All of the guys taking the inside track downwind, leaving the mighty Poles Kuzniewicz and Zitsky for dust.
Yeah, we never give up. This is what I love about sailing, about sport, that you fight until the end. You're looking for every option, and yeah, I will actually come back home after this regatta with a little bit of satisfaction that we managed to be very close to qualifying for the next round, but yeah, we just miss it. I'm taking it easy with the smile that we race again, and looking forward for Bahamas. Yeah, it's gonna be Bahamas. Oh, I love Bahamas.
Mark Mendelblatt and Brian Fatih, top scorers in the fleet races, earning them a bye through the quarters, now joining the semi-finals of the Star Sailors League Grand Slam on the lake. Much lighter breeze on Lake Neuchâtel. Oh, a short start line, 7 boats. Staniek and Klein again going for the committee boat end. Brazilians Grail and Diomeda way behind the curve on this one. And bow 1, Mendelblatt and Fatih in the middle, beginning to look good, as are Gaspic and Revkin. The Germans and Brazilians simultaneously tacking away from all that exhaust. Diaz and Boltins also heading to the right-hand side of the lake, and a big split now between the fleet heading left and right up the track towards the top mark. Grail and Diomeda nearest the camera, coming back into the course now, re-engaging the group who took the Gronson side. Mendelblatt and Fatih, bow 1, went furthest left, and that seems to have paid as they come into the course under the cone, just ahead of that group of Gaspic, Revkin, Bernard and Rambo. Well, 3 American sails in the shot there. SZABO tacking away. Augie Diaz taking the middle line. Staniek and Klein to the left of shot at the top, heading up the left-hand track. Grail and Diomeda getting spat out the back. And here the wind shifted to favour that left-hand side for the Germans, the reigning world champs, Staniek and Klein, right inside the cone, approaching that top mark, tacking round ahead. Well, they've come from 0 to hero in that first leg and read it very well. Gaspic and Revkin just behind them. A real topsy-turvy first leg this. Bernard and Rambo sliding into third place here. Super light conditions. Mendelblatt and Fatih into fourth. Those top 4 now qualifying at this stage for the final. SZABO and DUCOMMUN, Diaz and Boltins have a bit of work to do. Grella and Dimeda really not having such a great semi-final. Well, Fritjof Clean there, just hopping around the foredeck of the German boat, the reigning world champs. Fritjof Clean, Frida as he's known, like a cat in silk slippers in these super light winds. Now back upwind towards the top mark, final top mark rounding of this semi-final. And how close is this? We're looking at Mark Mendelblatt, Brian Farty down to leeward, nearest camera, bow number 1 looking under the boom. And there are the Croatian skipper Ivan Gaspic with Josh Revkin taking the lead just ahead of SZABO and DUCOMMUN. Staniak and Clean, Bernard and Rambo in that lineup, almost neck and neck, with Mendelblatt and Farty tacking over on that lay line for the final top mark rounding. And here it is, Gaspic and Revkin, bit of clean air, bow 92, off they go into the lead. That's probably them securing their spot in the final, but all of these guys now having to fight it out. Oh, and there's a scrap as Pascal and Rambo, oh, and they're getting passed around the outside by Mendelblatt and Farty. What incredible sailing by the Americans, and that's probably just clawed their way into the final ahead of Pascal and Rambo, with Diaz and Boltins in 6th. Crossing the finish line now, Croatian Ivan Gaspic with American Josh Revkin, and they are stoked with that result in the semi-final. Another bullet for those two, having a great day. SZABO and DUCOMMUN second across the line, Mendelblatt and Farty third, and Staniak and Clean, the world champs. Ooh, they just made it 4th into the final. Bernard and Rambo, unfortunately, have just missed the cut, as have Diaz and Boltins. Dramatic stuff at the Star Sailors League semi-final.
To be against a legend like Torben and Xavier, because he's my hero, he's French, so I mean, it's really, I'm proud to be in front of those guys, and to sail with my coach, it's quite funny.
And there is the start of the final. Sharon Burke, race officer, very happy with that. All 4 boats off to a flying start here in Grand Slam. Frida, Fritjof Clean giving us a wave to the camera up to that top mark. Mendelblatt and Farty engaging with the German world champs Staniak and Clean. Oh, and a classic match race move there. A lee bow tack by the Americans, very aggressive, and that's forcing the Germans out and behind. So Mendelblatt and Farty, bow number 1, taking the lead over the Germans, Staniak and Clean. Quite a bit of prize money at stake here, $100,000 in total, with the biggest chunk going to the top boat. Oh, and second lap, again, the Americans engaging with the Germans, and this time the Germans giving the Americans a dose of their own medicine there. Staniak and Clean happy with that, tacking away, lee bow tacking away. Oh, look at top of picture, George SZABO, Patrick DUCOMMUN, the Swiss sailor. They've taken an outside track, which has been favoured for the past 4 days at this championship. And there's Josh Revkin with Gaspic clearing some weed from their boat, perhaps slowing them down a bit. But George SZABO, Patrick DUCOMMUN rounding first, and the Americans and Germans with their own little match race, obviously taking their eye off the ball slightly, because at the finish it is indeed George SZABO and Patrick DUCOMMUN with victory, taking the gun of the final of the first Grand Slam on the lake in Neuchâtel, Switzerland. And how happy are they with that result? A great American-Swiss partnership. The reigning world champs Staniak and Clean second, with Mark Mendelblatt and Brian Farty taking third. Well, a very warm reception for the Swiss sailor, the local hero, Le Duc as they call him, with George SZABO, and in they go.
What a great event to have such a big event in a small lake in Switzerland, and you know, winds are a little shifty, but you got to expect that for a lake championship. He doesn't speak English, so we've got a little translation sheet on the side of the boat. So it's always pretty exciting. Every once in a while, you run out of French. You're like, oh gosh, how do I put this in words? Doc, pool.
Cheer for winners there of the first ever Lake Grand Slam. Coming soon for the Star Sailors League is the Sea Grand Slam in the Bahamas. We'll see you there.
The next event is the Star Sailors League finals, which are held in Nassau, Bahamas.
Finals already did 2 times, and very exciting championships, 20 boats, strong wind, beautiful venue, good waves. We won the first year.
It's a fantastic event. I always say that when God decides to go sailing, he does it outside Montague Bay there in the Bahamas.
Uh, 20 teams, 10 from the ranking and 10 wild cards. So to bring the maximum and high level of racing we can find in these really windy and warm conditions here during December. It will be a very nice event.